Question 1. The monitoring system on your vehicle illuminates a critical warning light indicating a potential mechanical issue while you are driving on a provincial highway in Alberta. What is the most responsible and legally compliant course of action to take? Option A. Safely pull over to the shoulder of the road as soon as it is safe to do so and assess the situation. Option B. Continue driving to the nearest service station, as it is likely a minor problem. Option C. Attempt to diagnose and fix the issue yourself while still driving on the highway. Option D. Ignore the warning light and continue your journey, assuming it is a false alarm. Correct answer is A. Safely pull over to the shoulder of the road as soon as it is safe to do so and assess the situation. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing immediate operational needs with the overarching legal and ethical obligations of safe driving in Alberta. The driver is faced with a situation where a minor infraction might seem expedient, but adhering to traffic laws is paramount to public safety and legal compliance. Careful judgment is required to prioritize safety and legality over perceived convenience. The best professional approach involves immediately ceasing the operation of the vehicle and safely pulling over to the side of the road. This action directly addresses the illuminated warning light by stopping the potential hazard and allowing for a proper assessment of the vehicle's condition. This is correct because Alberta's Traffic Safety Act mandates that drivers operate vehicles in a safe condition and take appropriate action when a malfunction is indicated. Failing to do so could lead to further damage, a more serious accident, or a traffic violation. This approach prioritizes the safety of the driver, other road users, and the integrity of the vehicle, aligning with the fundamental principles of responsible vehicle operation. An incorrect approach would be to continue driving to the nearest service station without first pulling over. This is incorrect because it disregards the immediate warning from the vehicle's monitoring system, potentially exacerbating the issue and creating a hazard on the road. It violates the principle of operating a vehicle only when it is in a safe condition, as implied by the illuminated warning light. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the warning light and continue driving as normal, assuming it is a minor issue. This is incorrect because it demonstrates a disregard for the vehicle's diagnostic system and the potential safety implications. Alberta traffic laws expect drivers to be attentive to their vehicle's condition and to take proactive measures when warnings are presented. A further incorrect approach would be to attempt a quick roadside repair without first pulling over to a safe location. This is incorrect because attempting repairs on the side of a busy road is inherently dangerous and could lead to an accident. Furthermore, without proper assessment in a safe environment, any attempted repair might be ineffective or even detrimental. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety, legality, and responsible action. This involves 1. Recognizing and acknowledging any warning signals from the vehicle. 2. Immediately assessing the potential risk posed by the warning. 3. Taking immediate action to mitigate risk, which typically involves safely stopping the vehicle. 4. Consulting appropriate resources, e.g., vehicle manual, roadside assistance, mechanic to address the issue. 5. Ensuring all actions comply with Alberta's traffic laws and regulations. Question 2. During the evaluation of a driver's ability to navigate intersections in Alberta, a driver approaches an intersection controlled by a traffic light. As they get closer, the light turns yellow. The driver is traveling at the posted speed limit and is approximately 50 meters from the intersection. Considering the distance and speed, what is the most appropriate action for the driver to take? Option A. Accelerate through the intersection to beat the red light. Option B. Continue at the current speed without making any adjustments, assuming they will clear the intersection before it turns red. Option C. Safely bring the vehicle to a stop before entering the intersection. Option D. Slam on the brakes immediately, regardless of the distance to the intersection. The correct answer is C. Safely bring the vehicle to a stop before entering the intersection. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the driver to make an immediate decision under pressure, balancing the need to avoid a collision with the legal requirements of traffic signals. Misjudging the situation could lead to a traffic violation, an accident, or both. The driver must quickly assess their vehicle's position, speed, and the signal's change to determine the safest and most legal course of action. Correct approach analysis. The best professional approach involves safely stopping the vehicle before entering the intersection if it can be done so without endangering other road users or oneself. This aligns with Alberta's Traffic Safety Act, which mandates drivers to obey traffic control signals. Specifically, Section 125 states that a driver facing a steady circular red indication must stop before the marked stop line or, if none, before entering the crosswalk on the near side of the roadway, or if none, then before entering the intersection. If stopping safely is not possible, proceeding through the intersection is then the only recourse, but the primary objective is to stop if feasible. Incorrect approach is analysis. Proceeding through the intersection without attempting to stop when a safe stop was possible is a regulatory failure. This directly contravenes the requirement to obey a red light. Another incorrect approach would be to brake abruptly and erratically, potentially causing a rear-end collision. This demonstrates poor judgment and a failure to consider the safety of other vehicles. Slamming on the brakes without assessing the distance to the intersection or the traffic behind is unsafe and could lead to a collision, which is contrary to the fundamental principles of safe driving. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a defensive driving mindset. This involves constantly scanning the road ahead, anticipating potential hazards, and being prepared to react. When approaching an intersection with a yellow light, drivers should assess their speed and distance to determine if a safe stop is possible. If a safe stop is feasible, it should be executed. If not, proceeding through the intersection cautiously is the appropriate action. This decision-making process prioritizes safety and adherence to traffic laws. Question 3. What factors determine a driver's fitness to operate a motor vehicle safely on Alberta roadways when experiencing a sudden onset of mild nausea and dizziness? Option A. The driver's subjective assessment of their ability to maintain control and react appropriately to changing road conditions. Option B. The driver's ability to keep the vehicle within its lane and follow traffic signals while feeling slightly unwell. Option C. The driver's belief that the symptoms are minor and will likely pass quickly without affecting their driving. Option D. The driver's desire to reach their destination without undue delay, even if experiencing mild symptoms. The correct answer is A. The driver's subjective assessment of their ability to maintain control and react appropriately to changing road conditions. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the driver to make a critical judgment call under pressure, balancing immediate personal needs with the overarching legal and safety obligations of operating a vehicle in Alberta. The driver's personal circumstances, feeling unwell, directly conflict with the responsibility to drive safely and legally. Misjudging the situation could lead to a serious accident, injury, or legal repercussions, highlighting the need for careful, informed decision-making. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves prioritizing safety and legal compliance above personal convenience or perceived minor discomfort. This means recognizing that operating a vehicle while feeling unwell, even if not severely impaired, carries inherent risks. The correct approach involves ceasing operation of the vehicle until the driver is fully fit to drive safely and legally. This aligns with the Alberta Traffic Safety Act, which mandates that drivers operate vehicles in a safe manner and are not impaired by any condition that affects their ability to do so. This approach upholds the ethical duty of care owed to all road users. Incorrect approach is analysis. Continuing to drive despite feeling unwell, even if the driver believes they can manage, is a failure to meet the standard of care required by law. The Alberta Traffic Safety Act requires drivers to be in a condition to operate a vehicle safely. Any impairment, including that from illness, can compromise reaction time, judgment, and physical control, leading to potential violations and accidents. This approach disregards the potential for the condition to worsen or to affect driving ability in unforeseen ways. Pulling over to the side of the road and waiting for a short period, without assessing the ability to drive safely before resuming, is also problematic. While it shows some awareness, it doesn't guarantee a return to safe driving capability. The driver might still be experiencing symptoms that could impair their driving, and simply waiting a few minutes may not be sufficient to recover. This approach risks a false sense of security and a premature return to the road. Seeking immediate medical attention for a non-emergency situation by driving while feeling unwell is a misapplication of priorities. While health is important, the immediate safety of oneself and others on the road takes precedence. If the driver's condition is severe enough to warrant immediate medical attention, it is likely also severe enough to impair their ability to drive safely. In such cases, alternative transportation or emergency services should be considered, rather than self-transporting while potentially impaired. Professional reasoning. Professionals in any field, including driving, must adopt a risk-averse approach when personal well-being might compromise their ability to perform their duties safely and legally. The decision-making process should involve a clear assessment of one's fitness to operate a vehicle, considering both physical and mental capabilities. If there is any doubt, the default action should be to refrain from driving. This involves understanding the legal obligations under the Alberta Traffic Safety Act and adhering to the ethical principles of ensuring the safety of oneself and others. When personal circumstances conflict with these duties, the legal and ethical obligations must always take precedence. Question 4. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of a vehicle exhibiting erratic driving patterns on a particular stretch of highway in Alberta. You observe a vehicle swerving significantly within its lane and occasionally crossing the solid white line marking the shoulder. What is the most appropriate and legally compliant course of action? Option A. Continue driving and ignore the situation, assuming it is not a serious concern. Option B. Attempt to signal the driver to pull over or follow the vehicle closely to observe further. Option C. Post a description of the vehicle and its behavior on a local community social media group. Option D. Immediately contact Alberta sheriffs or the local police service to report the observed erratic driving. The correct answer is D. Immediately contact Alberta sheriffs or the local police service to report the observed erratic driving. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it involves a potential conflict between a driver's perceived need for immediate action and the established procedures designed to ensure safety and compliance with Alberta's traffic laws. The driver's emotional state and urgency can cloud judgment, making it crucial for any observer or involved party to adhere strictly to regulations rather than reacting impulsively. The challenge lies in balancing empathy with the non-negotiable requirements of the law. Correct approach analysis. The best professional approach is to immediately contact the appropriate authorities, specifically the Alberta sheriffs or the local police service, and provide them with all relevant details. This is correct because Alberta's Traffic Safety Act and associated regulations mandate reporting of certain incidents and require drivers to follow specific procedures when encountering situations that may involve impaired driving or other safety concerns. Contacting law enforcement ensures that trained professionals can assess the situation, respond appropriately, and take necessary enforcement actions, thereby upholding public safety and legal compliance. This approach prioritizes adherence to the law and the safety of all road users. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to attempt to stop the vehicle yourself or to follow it closely to gather more evidence. This is incorrect because it places the individual in a potentially dangerous situation, as the driver of the suspect vehicle may be impaired and unpredictable. Furthermore, it bypasses the established legal framework for reporting and investigating suspected impaired driving, which is the sole purview of law enforcement. This action could be construed as vigilantism and may interfere with an official investigation. Another incorrect approach is to ignore the situation and continue driving. This is incorrect because it fails to act on a reasonable suspicion of a serious safety risk to the public. Alberta's traffic laws and general ethical responsibilities encourage citizens to report potential dangers on the road. By ignoring the situation, one could be seen as passively contributing to a potential accident or harm. A further incorrect approach is to post about the incident on social media to seek advice or alert others. This is incorrect because it is an inappropriate channel for reporting suspected criminal activity or safety hazards. Social media is not a reliable or official reporting mechanism, and it can lead to the spread of misinformation, potential harassment of the driver in question, and interference with any potential law enforcement investigation. It also fails to directly address the immediate safety concern. Professional reasoning. Professionals encountering such situations should follow a decision-making process that prioritizes safety, legality, and established procedures. First, assess the immediate safety of yourself and others. If there is no immediate danger to yourself, the next step is to contact the appropriate authorities, Alberta sheriffs or local police, and provide a clear, factual description of the observed behavior and location. Avoid any actions that could escalate the situation or compromise an official investigation. Documenting the observation factually, without speculation, can be helpful if contacted by authorities, but the primary action is reporting. Question 5. The control framework reveals that you are running late for an important appointment in Calgary and are currently driving on a highway with a posted speed limit of 100 km/h. The vehicle in front of you is traveling at approximately 95 km/h. You feel a strong urge to increase your speed to make up for lost time. Considering Alberta's traffic laws and safe driving practices, what is the most responsible course of action? Option A. Maintain the posted speed limit of 100 km/h and a safe following distance, accepting the delay. Option B. Decrease your following distance to less than 2 seconds to be ready to overtake quickly. Option C. Increase your speed to 110 km/h to try and make up for lost time. Option D. Weave between lanes to try and find a faster route. The correct answer is A. Maintain the posted speed limit of 100 km/h and a safe following distance, accepting the delay. Explanation. The control framework reveals a scenario where a driver's understanding of Alberta's traffic laws is being tested in a practical, albeit hypothetical, situation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the driver to not only recall specific rules, but also to apply them judiciously in a dynamic environment, prioritizing safety and legal compliance above all else. The pressure of a test, combined with the real-world consequences of traffic violations, necessitates careful judgment. The correct approach involves a driver consistently adhering to the posted speed limit and maintaining a safe following distance, even when feeling rushed. This is correct because Alberta's Traffic Safety Act and associated regulations, such as the speed limits regulation, mandate adherence to posted speed limits to ensure public safety and predictable traffic flow. Maintaining a safe following distance, often referred to as the 2-second rule or more in adverse conditions, is a fundamental principle of defensive driving, directly supported by the general duty of care expected of all drivers under provincial law to operate their vehicles safely and avoid collisions. This approach prioritizes legal compliance and the safety of all road users. An incorrect approach would be to exceed the speed limit to make up for lost time. This is professionally unacceptable as it directly violates Alberta's Traffic Safety Act, which sets maximum speed limits. Exceeding the speed limit significantly increases the risk of accidents, reduces reaction time, and can lead to severe penalties, including fines and demerit points. Another incorrect approach would be to tailgate the vehicle in front, assuming they are also in a hurry. This is professionally unacceptable because it demonstrates a disregard for safe following distances, a key component of safe driving practices in Alberta. Tailgating reduces the driver's ability to react to sudden stops or hazards, increasing the likelihood of a rear-end collision, which is a serious traffic offense. A further incorrect approach would be to weave through traffic, even if the driver believes they are being cautious. This is professionally unacceptable as it creates unpredictable movements on the roadway, endangering other drivers and potentially leading to collisions. Alberta traffic laws emphasize maintaining a single lane and signaling lane changes, and weaving inherently disrupts this order and safety. The professional reasoning process for a driver in such a situation should involve a clear prioritization of safety and legal compliance. This means understanding that being late is a lesser consequence than causing an accident or receiving a traffic ticket. Drivers should constantly assess their surroundings, anticipate potential hazards, and adhere strictly to the rules of the road as outlined in Alberta's Traffic Safety Act. If feeling rushed, the professional decision is to accept the delay and drive safely, rather than compromising safety for the sake of expediency. Question 6. Process analysis reveals that while directing traffic at construction zone on a provincial highway in Alberta, you encounter a driver who is visibly distressed and claims to be rushing to a medical emergency. The driver is requesting to bypass the temporary traffic control measures, including the stop signs and flagger instructions, to proceed immediately. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Stop the vehicle. Explain the necessity of adhering to the temporary traffic control measures for everyone's safety, and instruct the driver to wait their turn according to the established traffic flow. Option B. Ignore the driver's request and allow them to proceed through the construction zone without any intervention. Option C. Allow the driver to proceed through the construction zone without adhering to the temporary traffic control measures, given their stated emergency. Option D. Engage in a lengthy debate with the driver about the validity of their emergency to determine if they should be allowed to pass. The correct answer is A. Stop the vehicle explain the necessity of adhering to the temporary traffic control measures for everyone's safety, and instruct the driver to wait their turn according to the established traffic flow. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it involves a direct conflict between a driver's perceived urgency and the strict legal requirements for traffic control devices. The driver's personal situation, while understandable, cannot override established traffic laws designed for public safety. The challenge lies in the professional's ability to remain objective, uphold the law, and communicate effectively without compromising safety or appearing unsympathetic. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves prioritizing the established traffic control measures and the legal framework governing their use in Alberta. This means adhering to the posted speed limit and the instructions of the traffic control person, regardless of the driver's personal circumstances. Alberta's Traffic Safety Act and associated regulations are clear on the mandatory compliance with traffic control devices and signals. The professional's duty is to enforce these regulations to ensure the safety of all road users. By stopping the vehicle and explaining the necessity of adhering to the traffic control measures, the professional upholds the law and reinforces the importance of traffic safety protocols. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves allowing the driver to proceed without adhering to the traffic control measures due to their stated emergency. This is a failure to enforce Alberta's Traffic Safety Act, which mandates compliance with traffic control devices. It creates a dangerous precedent and compromises the safety of other road users who are following the established rules. Another incorrect approach is to become argumentative or dismissive of the driver's situation. While the driver's urgency does not excuse noncompliance, a professional approach requires maintaining composure and explaining the situation clearly and respectfully, rather than escalating the interaction. This can lead to further conflict and a breakdown in communication, undermining the professional's authority and the safety objective. A further incorrect approach is to ignore the driver and allow them to pass without any intervention. This is a direct dereliction of duty and a failure to uphold the traffic laws of Alberta. It implies that traffic control measures are optional and can be disregarded, leading to potential accidents and a breakdown of order on the roadway. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes public safety and legal compliance. This involves 1. Assessing the situation objectively, recognizing the driver's stated urgency but not allowing it to override legal requirements. 2. Upholding the established traffic control measures as paramount for safety. 3. Communicating clearly and respectfully with the driver, explaining the legal necessity of compliance. 4. Taking appropriate enforcement action if non-compliance persists, in accordance with Alberta's Traffic Safety Act. Question 7. System analysis indicates that while driving on a residential street in Calgary, Alberta, you observe a pedestrian on the sidewalk ahead, approximately 50 meters away. The pedestrian is facing away from the road and appears to be fumbling with a large bag, occasionally looking down at it. They are not currently in a crosswalk. What is the most appropriate immediate action to take? Option A. Maintain your current speed and continue observing the pedestrian from a distance, assuming they will not enter the road. Option B. Immediately begin to slow down and prepare to stop, maintaining a clear view of the pedestrian and the roadway. Option C. Swerve into the adjacent lane to create more space without significantly reducing your speed. Option D. Honk your horn to alert the pedestrian to your presence and continue driving at your current speed. The correct answer is B. Immediately begin to slow down and prepare to stop, maintaining a clear view of the pedestrian and the roadway. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the driver to make an immediate judgment call in a dynamic traffic environment, balancing their own safety with the safety of others, while adhering to specific Alberta traffic laws. The presence of a pedestrian, especially one exhibiting unusual behavior, necessitates a heightened level of caution and a proactive approach to risk mitigation. Failure to react appropriately could result in a collision, injury, or a traffic violation. Correct approach analysis. The best professional approach involves immediately slowing down and preparing to stop, while maintaining a clear line of sight and observing the pedestrian's actions. This aligns with Section 45 of the Alberta Traffic Safety Act, which mandates that drivers must yield the right-of-way to pedestrians in a crosswalk. Even if the pedestrian is not in a designated crosswalk, but is exhibiting behavior that suggests they might enter the roadway, a prudent driver should exercise extreme caution. This approach prioritizes the safety of the most vulnerable road user and demonstrates responsible driving behavior, anticipating potential hazards. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to maintain speed and assume the pedestrian will not enter the roadway. This fails to acknowledge the unpredictable nature of pedestrian behavior and the driver's legal and ethical obligation to avoid collisions. It directly contravenes the principle of defensive driving and the duty of care owed to other road users, potentially leading to a violation of the Traffic Safety Act if an incident occurs. Another incorrect approach is to honk the horn aggressively and continue driving. While a brief, cautionary honk might be appropriate in some situations to alert a distracted pedestrian, aggressive honking can startle the pedestrian, causing them to react unpredictably and potentially move into the path of the vehicle. This approach is not a substitute for slowing down and preparing to stop, and demonstrates a lack of empathy and responsible hazard assessment. A third incorrect approach is to swerve sharply to avoid the pedestrian without first slowing down or assessing if it is safe to do so. Swerving can lead to losing control of the vehicle, colliding with other vehicles, or leaving the roadway, creating a more dangerous situation than the initial perceived threat. This reaction prioritizes avoiding one hazard by potentially creating multiple others, which is contrary to safe driving practices and Alberta's traffic regulations. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that emphasizes hazard identification, risk assessment, and proactive mitigation. This involves constantly scanning the environment, anticipating potential dangers, and making decisions that prioritize safety and compliance with traffic laws. In situations involving pedestrians, especially those exhibiting unusual behavior, the default response should be to reduce speed and prepare to stop, ensuring the safety of the pedestrian and other road users. Question 8. Governance review demonstrates that a driver approaching a residential street in Calgary, Alberta, observes a pedestrian on the sidewalk near a marked crosswalk. An oncoming vehicle is approaching the same crosswalk from the opposite direction. The pedestrian is looking at their phone and appears to be unaware of their surroundings. What is the safest and most legally compliant course of action for the driver? Option A. Swerve into the oncoming lane to create more space between the vehicle and the pedestrian. Option B. Slow down significantly, observe the pedestrian's actions and the oncoming vehicle's speed, and be prepared to stop if the pedestrian enters the crosswalk or if the oncoming vehicle poses a risk. Option C. Proceed through the crosswalk at the normal speed, assuming the pedestrian will wait for the oncoming vehicle to pass. Option D. Honk the horn loudly to alert the pedestrian to the presence of vehicles. The correct answer is B. Slow down significantly, observe the pedestrian's actions and the oncoming vehicle's speed, and be prepared to stop if the pedestrian enters the crosswalk or if the oncoming vehicle poses a risk. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a driver to interpret and react to a complex, dynamic traffic situation involving multiple road users and potential hazards. The driver must not only understand the immediate rules of the road, but also anticipate the actions of others and make a safe decision under pressure, demonstrating a high level of situational awareness and defensive driving principles, which are core to safe operation of a vehicle in Alberta. Correct approach analysis. The best approach involves the driver slowing down significantly, observing the actions of the pedestrian and the oncoming vehicle, and being prepared to stop if necessary. This aligns with Alberta's Traffic Safety Act, which emphasizes the duty of care drivers owe to vulnerable road users like pedestrians. Specifically, Section 45. 1 of the Act states that a driver approaching a pedestrian crossing must yield the right-of-way to a pedestrian who is on the crossing. Even if the pedestrian is not yet on the crossing, a prudent driver would anticipate their intention to cross and adjust their speed accordingly, demonstrating defensive driving. This approach prioritizes safety and adherence to the spirit of traffic laws designed to prevent collisions. Incorrect approach is analysis. Proceeding at the normal speed and assuming the pedestrian will wait is incorrect because it disregards the potential for the pedestrian to enter the roadway unexpectedly and fails to account for the oncoming vehicle's position and speed. This violates the duty of care and the principle of defensive driving, increasing the risk of a collision. Honking the horn aggressively to alert the pedestrian is incorrect as it can startle the pedestrian, potentially causing them to react unpredictably and enter the roadway in front of the driver or the oncoming vehicle. While signaling intent is sometimes appropriate, Aggressive honking in this context is more likely to create a hazard than prevent one. Swerving into the oncoming lane to avoid the pedestrian is extremely dangerous and incorrect. This action creates an immediate and severe risk of a head-on collision with the oncoming vehicle, a far greater hazard than the potential interaction with the pedestrian. This demonstrates a complete failure to assess the overall traffic situation and prioritize safety. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a systematic decision-making process when faced with such scenarios. This involves 1. Hazard identification, recognizing all potential hazards, pedestrian, oncoming vehicle, road conditions. 2. Risk assessment, evaluating the likelihood and severity of each hazard. 3. Rule application, recalling and applying relevant traffic laws, e.g., yielding to pedestrians. 4. Defensive driving principles, anticipating the actions of others and preparing for the worst-case scenario. 5. Decision and action, choosing the safest course of action that minimizes risk to all road users. In this case, slowing down and observing is the most prudent action. Question 9. Strategic planning requires a new driver in Alberta who has just obtained their Class 7 learner's license to consider their options for supervised driving practice. They are eager to gain experience but are aware of the provincial regulations. Which of the following scenarios best adheres to the Alberta Traffic Safety Act for supervised driving? Option A. Driving with a friend who is 18 years old and has held their Class 5 license for 2 years, seated in the front passenger seat. Option B. Driving with a fully licensed Class 5 driver who is 25 years old but seated in the back seat. Option C. Driving with a fully licensed Class 5 driver who is at least 25 years old and has held their license for over 4 years, seated in the front passenger seat. Option D. Driving alone, as they feel confident in their ability to handle the vehicle. The correct answer is C. Driving with a fully licensed Class 5 driver who is at least 25 years old and has held their license for over 4 years, seated in the front passenger seat. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for transportation with the legal and safety obligations of a new driver in Alberta. The driver must make a decision that upholds the law while also ensuring their own safety and the safety of others on the road. Careful judgment is required to avoid potential legal repercussions and to demonstrate responsible driving habits from the outset. The correct approach involves understanding and adhering to the graduated licensing program in Alberta. Specifically, a driver holding a learner's Class 7 license must be accompanied by a fully licensed Class 5 driver who is at least 25 years old and has at least 4 years of driving experience. This accompanying driver must be seated in the front passenger seat. This approach is correct because it directly aligns with the Alberta Traffic Safety Act and its associated regulations, which are designed to gradually introduce new drivers to the complexities of driving in a supervised environment. The presence of an experienced, older driver is a key safety measure mandated by law to provide guidance and intervention if necessary. An incorrect approach would be to drive with a friend who is 18 years old and has held their Class 5 license for only 2 years. This is professionally unacceptable because it violates the specific age and experience requirements for an accompanying driver under Alberta's graduated licensing program. The law is explicit about these qualifications, and failing to meet them constitutes a breach of traffic regulations, potentially leading to penalties for both the learner driver and the unqualified accompanying driver. Another incorrect approach would be to drive alone, even if the learner driver feels confident. This is professionally unacceptable, as it directly contravenes the fundamental restriction for a Class 7 license holder, which prohibits solo driving. The entire purpose of the learner stage is supervised practice, and driving alone negates this crucial safety provision. A final incorrect approach would be to have a fully licensed, Class 5, driver who is 25 years old but seated in the back seat. This is professionally unacceptable because it fails to meet the requirement that the accompanying driver must be in the front passenger seat. The positioning of the accompanying driver is specified for optimal supervision and communication, and deviating from this requirement undermines the safety intent of the regulation. The professional reasoning process for a new driver in Alberta facing this situation should involve 1. Identifying the specific license class held, Class 7. 2. Recalling or consulting the accompanying driver requirements for that license class as stipulated by Alberta's Traffic Safety Act. 3. Verifying the age and experience of the potential accompanying driver. 4. Confirming the seating position of the accompanying driver. 5. Prioritizing legal compliance and safety over convenience or perceived ability. Question 10. The assessment process reveals that a driver in Alberta is approaching a stop sign at a speed of 50 km/h on a dry road with a typical reaction time of 1.5 seconds. Assuming a constant deceleration rate of 5 m/s2, what is the total stopping distance in meters? Option A, approximately 45.8 meters. Option B, approximately 28 meters. Option C, approximately 30.0 meters. Option D, approximately 25.0 meters. The correct answer is A, approximately 45.8 meters. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a common challenge for new drivers in Alberta, accurately calculating stopping distances under varying conditions. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires not just theoretical knowledge of road rules, but also the practical application of mathematical principles to ensure safety. Miscalculation can lead to dangerous situations, including collisions, and demonstrates a lack of preparedness for real-world driving. Careful judgment is required to understand how factors like speed and road surface affect stopping distance, and to apply the correct formulas. The best approach involves using the standard formula for calculating total stopping distance, which accounts for both reaction distance and braking distance. This is the most comprehensive and legally sound method, as it directly reflects the requirements for safe driving as outlined by Alberta's traffic laws, which emphasize maintaining a safe following distance and being able to stop within the distance visible. The formula for total stopping distance is total stopping distance equals reaction distance plus braking distance. Reaction distance is calculated as reaction distance equals speed in km/h asterisk reaction time in seconds. Braking distance is often approximated by the formula braking distance equals speed in km/h 2/2 asterisk deceleration rate. Alberta's driver's guide emphasizes understanding these components to make informed decisions about speed and following distance. An incorrect approach would be to only consider reaction time and ignore braking distance. This fails to account for the significant distance a vehicle travels once the brakes are applied, leading to an underestimation of the total distance required to stop. This directly contravenes the principle of maintaining a safe stopping distance, which is a fundamental aspect of safe driving in Alberta. Another incorrect approach is to solely focus on braking distance without considering the distance covered during the driver's reaction time. This also results in an underestimation of the total stopping distance and can lead to collisions, particularly in situations requiring immediate stops. A further incorrect approach is to use a simplified, arbitrary rule of thumb, such as the 2-second rule, without understanding the underlying mathematical principles or how it might be insufficient in adverse conditions. While the 2-second rule is a useful guideline, it's a simplification and doesn't provide the precise calculation needed for a thorough understanding of stopping distances, especially at higher speeds or on slippery surfaces. The professional decision-making process for situations like this involves 1. Identifying the core problem, calculating safe stopping distances. 2. Recalling relevant knowledge, Alberta's traffic laws and the physics of motion. 3. Applying the appropriate mathematical model, the total stopping distance formula. 4. Considering contextual factors, speed, road conditions, and driver reaction time. 5. Making a safe and informed decision based on the calculation. Question 11. Operational review demonstrates that as you approach an intersection in Calgary, Alberta, the traffic light turns green. A pedestrian is standing at the edge of the crosswalk, looking towards the intersection but not yet stepping into the roadway. They appear to be hesitating. What is the most appropriate action to take? Option A. Slow down and be prepared to stop to allow the pedestrian to cross safely. Option B. Proceed through the intersection at a normal speed, assuming the pedestrian will wait. Option C. Honk your horn to alert the pedestrian and then proceed through the intersection. Option D. Slow down slightly but attempt to proceed through the intersection, edging past the pedestrian. Correct answer is A. Slow down and be prepared to stop to allow the pedestrian to cross safely. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the driver to make an immediate judgment call in a dynamic traffic situation, balancing their right-of-way with the safety of other road users. The presence of a pedestrian, especially one who appears uncertain, introduces a significant element of risk. Alberta's Traffic Safety Act and its associated regulations are designed to prioritize the safety of vulnerable road users, and failing to do so can have serious consequences, including fines, demerit points, and potential accidents. Careful judgment is required to interpret the pedestrian's behavior and react appropriately to prevent a collision. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice in this situation is to yield to the pedestrian. This approach involves slowing down significantly, and if necessary, coming to a complete stop to allow the pedestrian to safely cross the road. This aligns directly with Alberta's Traffic Safety Act, which mandates that drivers must yield the right-of-way to pedestrians in crosswalks, and generally exercise caution and give way to pedestrians when their intentions are unclear or they are in a position to enter the roadway. Ethically, it prioritizes human safety over the driver's convenience or strict adherence to a green light if doing so would endanger another person. Incorrect approaches analysis. Proceeding through the intersection without slowing down or stopping, assuming the pedestrian will stop, is a failure to exercise due care and attention as required by Alberta traffic laws. It disregards the potential for the pedestrian to misjudge the situation or change their mind, creating a high risk of a collision. This approach prioritizes the driver's progress over pedestrian safety, which is contrary to the spirit and letter of traffic regulations. Slowing down but not stopping, and attempting to edge through the intersection while the pedestrian is still in the vicinity of the crosswalk is also an unacceptable approach. While it shows some awareness, it still places the pedestrian at risk. Alberta law requires drivers to yield when there is any doubt about a pedestrian's ability to cross safely. This approach demonstrates a lack of decisive action to ensure pedestrian safety. Honking the horn to alert the pedestrian and then proceeding is a dangerous and unprofessional response. Honking can startle pedestrians, potentially causing them to react unpredictably and increase their risk of entering the path of the vehicle. Does not fulfill the driver's obligation to yield and instead attempts to force the pedestrian out of the way, which is a violation of safe driving practices and Alberta's traffic regulations. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a defensive driving mindset. This involves anticipating potential hazards and acting to prevent them. When approaching an intersection with a pedestrian near a crosswalk, especially when the pedestrian's intentions are not definitively clear, the default action should be to reduce speed and prepare to stop. The driver should assess the pedestrian's body language, speed, and direction of travel. If there is any ambiguity or indication that the pedestrian might enter the roadway, the driver must yield. This proactive approach, prioritizing safety and compliance with traffic laws, is the cornerstone of responsible driving. Question 12. Cost-benefit analysis shows that licensing qualified drivers is paramount for public safety in Alberta. A new driver applicant has just completed their road test and failed. They are visibly upset and ask, "Why did I fail? Can't you just pass me? I really need this license." As the licensing agent, what is the most appropriate and professional response according to Alberta's driver licensing framework? Option A. Clearly explain the specific driving errors observed during the test, referencing the relevant Alberta driver's handbook sections and offering guidance on areas for improvement before their next attempt. Option B. Tell the applicant, "Don't worry, you can just try again next week and maybe you'll pass then." Option C. Dismiss the applicant's concerns by saying, "Most people fail their first road test anyway, so it's not a big deal." Option D. State you failed and process their request for a retest without further explanation. The correct answer is A. Clearly explain the specific driving errors observed during the test, referencing the relevant Alberta driver's handbook sections and offering guidance on areas for improvement before their next attempt. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for a driver's license with the legal and safety requirements mandated by Alberta's traffic laws. The applicant's eagerness and potential lack of full understanding of the rules create a situation where a licensing agent must uphold the integrity of the licensing process without being overly punitive or dismissive. The agent's judgment is critical in ensuring that only qualified individuals are licensed, thereby protecting public safety on Alberta's roads. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves a thorough and patient explanation of the specific reasons for the failure, referencing the relevant Alberta driver's handbook sections and the specific driving errors observed. This approach directly addresses the applicant's immediate concern, why they failed, by providing clear, actionable feedback. It aligns with the ethical obligation of licensing agents to ensure road safety and the regulatory requirement to assess competency based on established provincial standards. By offering guidance on how to improve, the agent demonstrates a commitment to the applicant's eventual success while upholding the rigor of the licensing process. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves simply stating you failed without providing any explanation. This is professionally unacceptable as it offers no constructive feedback, leaving the applicant confused and unable to improve. Fails to meet the implicit ethical duty to guide applicants towards competency and the regulatory expectation of a fair assessment. Another incorrect approach is to suggest that the applicant can just try again next week without addressing the specific reasons for the failure. This undermines the purpose of the road test, which is to assess readiness to drive safely. It could lead to an unqualified driver being licensed, posing a risk to public safety and violating the core principles of the Alberta Traffic Safety Act. A further incorrect approach is to dismiss the applicant's concerns by saying everyone fails their first time. This is dismissive and unprofessional. It fails to acknowledge the individual's effort and the specific reasons for their failure, and it does not provide the necessary guidance for improvement. It also creates a false impression that failure is an expected and acceptable outcome, rather than an indicator that further training or practice is needed. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this role should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety and fairness. This involves 1. Clearly understanding and applying the Alberta driver's licensing regulations and testing standards. 2. Communicating assessment results with clarity, specificity, and empathy. 3. Providing constructive feedback that empowers the applicant to improve. And 4. Maintaining the integrity of the licensing process to ensure public safety. Question 13. The risk matrix shows a high probability of an applicant attempting to bypass standard procedures. An individual arrives at the Alberta Driver Examination Office stating they have been driving for years in another country and believe they are ready for their Class 5 road test, but they do not have a valid Alberta learner's permit. They are eager to get their license quickly. What is the most appropriate course of action for the examiner? Option A. Inform the applicant that they cannot proceed with the road test and send them away without further explanation. Option B. Clearly explain the Alberta Traffic Safety Act requirements for obtaining a Class 5 license, including the necessity of a valid learner's permit and successful completion of the road test, and advise them on the steps to obtain a learner's permit. Option C. Suggest that the applicant might be able to expedite the process by speaking to a supervisor or by finding a way to get an exemption from the learner's permit requirement. Option D. Proceed with the road test to assess their driving skills, assuming their experience makes them competent, and address the permit issue later. The correct answer is B. Clearly explain the Alberta Traffic Safety Act requirements for obtaining a Class 5 license, including the necessity of a valid learner's permit and successful completion of the road test, and advise them on the steps to obtain a learner's permit. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for a driver's license with the legal requirements for obtaining one. The applicant's eagerness and potential misunderstanding of the process, coupled with the examiner's responsibility to uphold traffic laws and safety standards in Alberta, create a situation demanding careful judgment and adherence to regulations. The examiner must avoid compromising the integrity of the testing process while also being fair to the applicant. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice is to clearly explain the Alberta Traffic Safety Act requirements for obtaining a Class 5 license, specifically detailing the need for a valid learner's permit and successful completion of the road test. This approach ensures the applicant understands the legal pathway, reinforces the importance of following established procedures, and upholds the integrity of the licensing system. It directly addresses the applicant's stated goal by outlining the necessary steps according to Alberta's regulations. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to proceed with the road test without verifying the applicant's learner's permit status. This violates the Alberta Traffic Safety Act, which mandates specific prerequisites for road tests. It compromises the safety and validity of the licensing process by allowing an individual to attempt a test they are not legally permitted to take, potentially leading to an unqualified driver on Alberta's roads. Another incorrect approach is to dismiss the applicant's request outright without providing any explanation or guidance. The applicant may not be eligible at this moment. A professional response involves educating them on the correct procedures. Failing to do so can lead to frustration and a lack of understanding of the licensing requirements, potentially causing them to seek improper shortcuts in the future. A third incorrect approach is to suggest that the applicant might be able to get around the learner's permit requirement through informal means or by knowing someone. This is unethical and illegal, as it undermines the established legal framework for driver licensing in Alberta. It also exposes the examiner to disciplinary action and damages public trust in the licensing authority. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes regulatory compliance, ethical conduct, and clear communication. First, they must identify the applicant's request and assess its alignment with current regulations. If the request deviates from the law, the professional's duty is to inform the applicant of the correct procedures and the reasons behind them. This involves explaining the relevant legislation, e.g., Alberta Traffic Safety Act, and the consequences of noncompliance. The goal is to educate and guide the applicant towards a legal and safe outcome, rather than facilitating or condoning any deviation from established protocols. Question 14. The evaluation methodology shows that when approaching an intersection in Alberta, you observe a vehicle in the oncoming lane making a sudden, unexpected swerve into your intended lane of travel, appearing to be preparing for a turn without signaling. What is the most appropriate immediate action to take to ensure safety and compliance with Alberta traffic laws? Option A. Slow down and prepare to stop, yielding the right-of-way to the unpredictable vehicle to avoid a potential collision. Option B. Maintain your speed and proceed through the intersection, assuming the other vehicle will correct its course. Option C. Accelerate to pass the vehicle before it fully enters your lane, anticipating it will complete its maneuver. Option D. Honk your horn to alert the other driver to their unsafe action and continue on your intended path. The correct answer is A. Slow down and prepare to stop, yielding the right-of-way to the unpredictable vehicle to avoid a potential collision. Explanation. The evaluation methodology shows that a driver's ability to anticipate and react to potential hazards is paramount for safe operation on Alberta roads. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the driver to make a split-second decision under pressure, balancing their immediate need to proceed with the potential risk posed by another road user's unpredictable behavior. Careful judgment is required to prioritize safety over expediency, adhering to the Alberta Traffic Safety Act and its associated regulations. The correct approach involves prioritizing the avoidance of a collision and ensuring the safety of all road users. This means yielding to the unpredictable vehicle, even if it appears to be in violation of traffic laws. The Alberta Traffic Safety Act emphasizes the responsibility of all drivers to operate their vehicles in a safe and considerate manner, and this includes anticipating the actions of others and taking reasonable steps to avoid an accident. By slowing down and preparing to stop, the driver demonstrates a commitment to safety and compliance with the general duty of care expected of all drivers in Alberta. An incorrect approach would be to assume the other vehicle will correct its course and proceed as planned. This demonstrates a failure to anticipate potential hazards and a disregard for the unpredictable nature of other drivers, which is contrary to the principles of safe driving and the Alberta Traffic Safety Act's emphasis on defensive driving. Another incorrect approach would be to accelerate to pass the vehicle before it fully enters the intersection. This action increases the risk of a collision if the other vehicle's trajectory is not as anticipated and shows a lack of caution and consideration for the potential actions of other road users. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety and regulatory compliance. This involves 1. Hazard identification, recognizing the potential danger presented by the other vehicle's erratic movement. 2. Risk assessment, evaluating the likelihood and severity of a collision. 3. Action selection, choosing the safest course of action, which in this case is to yield. 4. Regulatory compliance check, ensuring the chosen action aligns with the Alberta Traffic Safety Act and its regulations regarding safe driving practices, and yielding the right-of-way when necessary to prevent an accident. Question 15. Analysis of a sudden onset of blurred vision and dizziness experienced by a driver while operating their vehicle on a highway in Alberta, approximately 30 kilometers from their intended destination. What is the most responsible course of action? Option A. Pull over to the side of the road and wait for the symptoms to subside before continuing the journey. Option B. Continue driving to the nearest gas station to assess the situation, as it is only a short distance away. Option C. Attempt to tough it out and drive home, assuming the symptoms will resolve on their own. Option D. Immediately pull over to a safe location off the roadway and contact emergency medical services or a trusted individual for assistance. The correct answer is D. Immediately pull over to a safe location off the roadway and contact emergency medical services or a trusted individual for assistance. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it involves a potential conflict between a driver's immediate need to reach a destination and the legal requirements for vehicle operation in Alberta. The driver is experiencing a symptom that could impair their ability to drive safely, creating a situation where personal urgency clashes with public safety and legal obligations. Careful judgment is required to balance these competing factors. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice is to immediately cease driving and seek appropriate medical attention or assistance. This approach is correct because Alberta's Traffic Safety Act and associated regulations prioritize public safety. Driving while experiencing a symptom that could impair one's ability to control a vehicle, such as sudden dizziness or blurred vision, is a direct violation of the duty of care owed to other road users. Pulling over safely and contacting emergency services or a designated driver ensures that the driver does not endanger themselves or others, and it aligns with the ethical responsibility of all drivers to operate their vehicles safely and legally. Incorrect approach is analysis. Continuing to drive to the nearest gas station, even if it's a short distance, is professionally unacceptable. This approach fails to acknowledge the immediate risk posed by the symptom. Alberta law requires drivers to be in a fit condition to operate a vehicle. The potential for the symptom to worsen or cause an accident before reaching the gas station is significant, and this action prioritizes convenience over safety and legal compliance. Attempting to tough it out and continue driving home, assuming the symptom will pass, is also professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a disregard for the potential consequences of impaired driving. The unpredictable nature of medical symptoms means that assuming they will resolve on their own while operating a vehicle is a dangerous gamble that violates the principles of responsible driving and Alberta's traffic laws. Pulling over to the side of the road and waiting for the symptom to pass without seeking further assistance is less ideal than immediately seeking medical help or contacting someone. While it demonstrates some awareness of the risk, it doesn't proactively address the potential underlying medical issue. If the symptom is serious, prolonged waiting could delay necessary medical intervention, and the driver might still be impaired when they decide to resume driving. Professional reasoning. Professionals in any field, including driving, must prioritize safety and legal compliance. When faced with a situation that compromises either, the decision-making process should involve 1. Immediate risk assessment. Recognize the potential danger. 2. Legal obligations. Understand the relevant laws and regulations, in this case, Alberta's Traffic Safety Act. 3. Ethical responsibilities. Consider the duty of care to oneself and others. 4. Seeking appropriate assistance. Do not hesitate to contact emergency services or qualified individuals when personal capacity is compromised. Question 16. The review process indicates a new driver in Alberta is approaching an uncontrolled intersection where they arrive at the same time as another vehicle from their left. The new driver is unsure of the correct procedure. What is the safest and most legally compliant action for the new driver to take? Option A. Proceed through the intersection first, assuming the other driver will yield to them. Option B. Honk the horn to alert the other driver and then proceed. Option C. Stop in the middle of the intersection to allow the other driver to decide who goes first. Option D. Yield to the vehicle on the left, as it has the right-of-way according to Alberta traffic laws. The correct answer is D. Yield to the vehicle on the left, as it has the right-of-way according to Alberta traffic laws. Explanation. The review process indicates a common challenge faced by new drivers in Alberta, understanding the nuances of right-of-way at uncontrolled intersections. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the driver to not only recall the rules but also to apply them in a dynamic, real-world situation where other road users may not be following them perfectly. Careful judgment is required to anticipate potential conflicts and ensure safety. The correct approach involves a proactive and defensive driving strategy. This means observing all traffic approaching the intersection, including pedestrians and cyclists, and yielding to the vehicle that arrives first or, if arriving simultaneously, yielding to the vehicle on the right. This approach is correct because it directly aligns with Alberta's Traffic Safety Act, specifically the regulations concerning right-of-way at intersection where there are no traffic control signals or signs. This principle prioritizes predictable behavior and minimizes the risk of collisions by adhering to established rules that all licensed drivers are expected to know and follow. An incorrect approach would be to assume the other driver will yield simply because you arrived at the intersection first, even if they technically have the right-of-way. This is a failure to adhere to the fundamental right-of-way rules and demonstrates a lack of defensive driving. Another incorrect approach is to proceed aggressively into the intersection, assuming you can beat the other vehicle. This is a dangerous maneuver that disregards the established rules and significantly increases the risk of a collision, violating the duty of care owed to other road users. Finally, stopping completely in the intersection to wait and see what the other driver does, without a clear understanding of who has the right-of-way, can also create confusion and a hazardous situation, potentially blocking traffic and leading to unpredictable reactions from other drivers. Professionals should use a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety and adherence to traffic laws. This involves 1. Identifying the situation, uncontrolled intersection. 2. Recalling the relevant traffic laws, right-of-way rules. 3. Assessing the immediate environment, vehicles, pedestrians, road conditions. 4. Applying the law defensively, anticipating potential errors from others. 5. Making a clear, decisive action that prioritizes safety and compliance. Question 17. Performance analysis shows that a driver in Alberta is approaching an intersection with a flashing yellow light. A cyclist is in the intersection, preparing to turn left, and an oncoming vehicle is approaching the intersection from the opposite direction. What is the most appropriate action for the driver to take? Option A. Slow down significantly, observe the actions of the cyclist and the oncoming vehicle, and be prepared to stop if necessary to ensure a safe passage. Option B. Attempt to pass the cyclist immediately before the oncoming vehicle reaches the intersection. Option C. Stop abruptly in the intersection to allow the cyclist and oncoming vehicle to pass. Option D. Proceed through the intersection at the current speed, assuming the cyclist will complete their turn quickly. The correct answer is A. Slow down significantly, observe the actions of the cyclist and the oncoming vehicle, and be prepared to stop if necessary to ensure a safe passage. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a driver to interpret a complex traffic situation involving multiple road users and potential hazards, while also adhering to specific Alberta traffic laws. The driver must make a rapid, safe decision under pressure, considering the actions of others and their own vehicle's capabilities. The challenge lies in prioritizing safety and legal compliance when faced with uncertainty. Correct approach analysis. The best approach involves the driver slowing down significantly, observing the actions of the cyclist and the oncoming vehicle, and being prepared to stop if necessary to ensure a safe passage. This aligns with Alberta's Traffic Safety Act, which mandates drivers to exercise due care and attention, and to operate their vehicles in a manner that does not endanger others. Specifically, the Act requires drivers to maintain a safe distance from other road users and to yield when necessary to avoid a collision. By slowing down and observing, the driver is actively assessing the risk and preparing to comply with yielding requirements if the situation dictates. This proactive approach prioritizes the safety of all road users, including the vulnerable cyclist and the oncoming vehicle. Incorrect approaches analysis. Proceeding at the current speed without significantly slowing down is incorrect because it fails to account for the unpredictable nature of cyclists and the potential for the oncoming vehicle to be closer than it appears. This demonstrates a lack of due care and attention, violating the principles of safe driving and potentially leading to a collision. Attempting to pass the cyclist immediately without confirming the oncoming vehicle's position and speed is incorrect. This action could force the oncoming vehicle to brake suddenly or swerve, creating a dangerous situation and potentially violating rules regarding safe passing distances and oncoming traffic. Stopping abruptly without assessing the situation behind is incorrect. While stopping might be necessary, an abrupt stop without checking mirrors could endanger the driver and any vehicles following them, potentially causing a rear-end collision. This demonstrates a failure to consider the broader traffic environment. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a systematic risk assessment process. This involves 1. Identifying potential hazards, cyclist, oncoming vehicle. 2. Assessing the immediate risk posed by each hazard. 3. Considering the legal requirements, yielding safe distances. 4. Choosing the action that minimizes risk and ensures compliance with traffic laws. In this case, the safest and most legally compliant action is to reduce speed, observe, and be prepared to yield. Question 18. Compliance review shows a driver in Alberta approaching an intersection with the intention to turn left. An oncoming vehicle is already in the intersection, proceeding straight through. The driver intending to turn left has a green light. What is the safest and most legally compliant action for the driver to take? Option A. Wait for the oncoming vehicle to clear the intersection before completing the left turn. Option B. Honk the horn to signal the oncoming driver to stop. Option C. Proceed with the left turn, attempting to complete it before the oncoming vehicle reaches the turning path. Option D. Speed up to complete the left turn quickly before the oncoming vehicle becomes a hazard. The correct answer is A. Wait for the oncoming vehicle to clear the intersection before completing the left turn. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the driver to interpret a potentially ambiguous traffic situation and apply the Alberta Traffic Safety Act and associated regulations correctly under pressure. The driver must prioritize safety and adhere to the established rules of the road, even when faced with uncertainty about another driver's intentions. Misinterpreting the situation could lead to a collision, traffic violations, or endanger other road users. Correct approach analysis. The best professional approach involves yielding the right-of-way to the oncoming vehicle. According to the Alberta Traffic Safety Act, specifically sections related to intersections and turning, a driver intending to turn left must yield to any traffic approaching from the opposite direction that is close enough to constitute a hazard. In this scenario, the oncoming vehicle is already in the intersection and proceeding straight, indicating it has the right-of-way. Safely completing the turn requires waiting for the oncoming vehicle to clear the intersection. This approach prioritizes the fundamental principle of yielding to traffic with the right-of-way, preventing potential collisions and ensuring compliance with traffic laws designed to maintain order and safety on Alberta's roadways. Incorrect approaches analysis. Proceeding with the turn while the oncoming vehicle is in the intersection is a direct violation of the Alberta Traffic Safety Act's yielding requirements for left turns. This action creates a hazard and demonstrates a failure to properly assess the situation and yield to traffic with the right-of-way. Attempting to beat the oncoming vehicle is also a dangerous and illegal maneuver, as it assumes the other driver will react predictably or yield, which is not guaranteed and is contrary to the established rules. Honking the horn to signal impatience or demand the other driver stop is inappropriate and does not negate the requirement to yield. It could escalate the situation and is not a recognized method for resolving right-of-way disputes in Alberta. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety and regulatory compliance. This involves 1. Situational awareness, actively observing and assessing all surrounding traffic and road conditions. 2. Rule application, recalling and applying the relevant sections of the Alberta Traffic Safety Act and its regulations to the observed situation. 3. Risk assessment, evaluating the potential consequences of different actions, including the likelihood of a collision or a traffic infraction. 4. Defensive driving, making decisions that minimize risk and protect oneself and others, even if it means delaying an intended maneuver. In this case, the clear application of the yielding rule for left turns dictates waiting for the oncoming vehicle. Question 19. Investigation of a driver's actions at an uncontrolled intersection in Calgary, Alberta, reveals that they are approaching the intersection at the same time as another vehicle. The other vehicle is approaching from the driver's right. What is the legally mandated action the driver must take to ensure compliance with Alberta's traffic laws? Option A. Yield the right-of-way to the vehicle approaching from the right. Option B. Attempt to signal to the other driver that you intend to go first. Option C. Proceed through the intersection, assuming the other vehicle will stop. Option D. Proceed through the intersection if you believe you can do so safely before the other vehicle. The correct answer is A. Yield the right-of-way to the vehicle approaching from the right. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge involving a driver's understanding of Alberta's traffic laws concerning right-of-way at an uncontrolled intersection. The driver's perception of the situation and their adherence to established rules are critical for preventing collisions and ensuring road safety. Misinterpreting right-of-way can lead to dangerous situations, and a driver's responsibility extends beyond simply reacting to other vehicles. It involves proactive adherence to legal requirements. Correct approach analysis. The best professional approach involves the driver yielding the right-of-way to the vehicle approaching from their right. This aligns directly with Alberta's Traffic Safety Act, specifically the rules governing uncontrolled intersections. The act mandates that when two vehicles approach an uncontrolled intersection at approximately the same time, the driver on the right has the right-of-way. This rule is fundamental to preventing collisions and ensuring predictable traffic flow. By yielding, the driver demonstrates a commitment to following established traffic law, prioritizing safety, and acting responsibly. Incorrect approaches analysis. Proceeding without yielding to the vehicle on the right is a direct violation of Alberta's Traffic Safety Act. This action creates an immediate collision risk and demonstrates a failure to understand or adhere to fundamental right-of-way rules, which is ethically irresponsible and legally punishable. Assuming the other vehicle will yield because it appears to be slowing down is a dangerous assumption and not a legally recognized basis for determining right-of-way. Traffic laws are designed to be clear and unambiguous, and relying on the perceived actions of other drivers, rather than established rules, is a significant ethical and regulatory failure. Attempting to signal to the other driver that you intend to proceed first is also an incorrect approach. While communication can be part of driving, it cannot override the legally defined right-of-way. Such an action bypasses the established legal framework and introduces uncertainty, potentially leading to misinterpretation and a collision. It is an abdication of the driver's responsibility to follow the law. Professional reasoning. Professionals in any field, including driving, must prioritize adherence to established regulations and ethical guidelines. In this scenario, the decision-making process should involve 1. Identifying the intersection type, uncontrolled. 2. Recalling the specific traffic law governing right-of-way at such intersections in Alberta. 3. Applying the law to the immediate situation, recognizing the vehicle approaching from the right. 4. Acting in accordance with the law by yielding. This systematic approach ensures that actions are based on legal requirements and safety principles, rather than assumptions or personal judgment that may deviate from established standards. Question 20. Comparative studies suggest that new drivers in Alberta often underestimate the required stopping distance. If a driver is traveling at 80 km/h on a dry paved road and has an average reaction time of 1.5 seconds, and the braking distance is estimated to be approximately /0.006 times v2 meters, where v is the speed in km/h. What is the total stopping distance in meters? Option A, approximately 21.3 meters. Option B, approximately 53.3 meters. Option C, approximately 97.5 meters. Option D, approximately 76.2 meters. Correct answer is D, approximately 76.2 meters. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge for new drivers in Alberta, accurately estimating stopping distances under varying conditions. The professional challenge lies in translating theoretical knowledge of physics and road safety into practical, real-time decision-making that ensures the safety of oneself and others. Misjudging stopping distances can lead to collisions, fines, and a negative impact on driving records, all of which are professionally detrimental for any driver. The need for precise calculation and understanding of influencing factors makes this a critical skill. Correct approach analysis. The best approach involves applying the fundamental principles of physics to calculate the total stopping distance, which is the sum of reaction distance and braking distance. This requires understanding the relationship between speed, reaction time, and deceleration due to braking. Specifically, reaction distance is calculated as speed multiplied by reaction time. Braking distance is more complex and is influenced by factors like road surface condition, tire tread, and vehicle weight, but for a simplified calculation, it's often proportional to the square of the speed. The Alberta Driver's Guide provides guidance on typical reaction times and braking distances, which should be used as a basis for estimation. A driver should always err on the side of caution, assuming a slightly longer reaction time and braking distance than the absolute minimum. This approach aligns with the Alberta Traffic Safety Act's emphasis on safe driving practices and the requirement for drivers to maintain adequate control of their vehicles. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to solely rely on a visual estimation of the distance to the vehicle ahead, without considering the current speed or road conditions. This fails to account for the physics of motion and the time it takes for a driver to perceive a hazard and react. The Alberta Traffic Safety Act mandates that drivers maintain a safe following distance, which is directly related to stopping distance, not just a perceived gap. Another incorrect approach is to assume that braking distance is linear with speed. This is a fundamental misunderstanding of physics. Braking distance increases with the square of the speed. Therefore, doubling your speed does not just double your braking distance, it quadruples it. This miscalculation can lead to dangerously short following distances at higher speeds, violating the principles of safe driving and potentially leading to collisions. A third incorrect approach is to only consider the braking distance and ignore the reaction distance. The time it takes for a driver to perceive a hazard, decide to brake, and move their foot to the brake pedal is a significant portion of the total stopping distance. Neglecting this component will lead to an underestimation of the required stopping distance, increasing the risk of a rear-end collision. The Alberta Driver's Guide explicitly details the concept of total stopping distance, encompassing both reaction and braking components. Professional reasoning. Professionals in any field, including driving, must base their decisions on accurate data and established principles. In driving, this means understanding the physics of motion and applying safety guidelines provided by regulatory bodies like Alberta Transportation. When faced with a situation requiring a judgment of stopping distance, a professional driver will 1. Identify the current speed. 2. Estimate their reaction time, or use a standard average. 3. Consider the road conditions and vehicle type to estimate braking distance. 4. Sum these components to determine the total stopping distance. 5. Ensure their following distance is greater than this calculated total stopping distance, adding a buffer for unforeseen circumstances. This systematic approach, grounded in scientific principles and regulatory requirements, ensures safe and responsible operation of a vehicle.